you sit down with the LA Times, and they write this article about you, and the headline is as follows: Joseph Arthur, the path from acclaimed artist to anti-vaxxer. As if those two things are even mutually exclusive, as if anti-vaxxer is a dirty word in and of itself necessarily, but they clearly are using it to disparage. And the problem that you say with this is it's actually untrue. Anti-vaxxer is not true. And in fact, you had discussions with the reporter about that very thing. So tell us what happened.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he asked me specifically if I was an anti-vaxxer. And at that point, it was already the worst thing you could be called in the world. It meant the most insane human being of all time that, is beneath human consideration. So, of course, I answered, no, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, which I'm not. Anyone who's done a little bit of research on the COVID injections, and I try not to call them vaccines because they're really not. Again, it goes to language and redefining words. It's not a vaccine in the traditional sense. It's not like taking a little dead piece of the virus, a piece that can barely affect you, injecting it into you to, excite your innate immune system to fight against it. That makes total sense. That's vaccines. That I understand. I believe in that tech. But this is something totally different. This is a medical technology. It's experimental. So I answered truthfully. I said, no, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I am very concerned with this untested new technology that has no long-term safety testing behind it and seems to be a part of some kind of strange agenda. Where they're demonizing things that make no sense to demonize, where they've taken away people's rights in ways we've never seen before, where they've infantilized us to points that are absurd, and where they've shut down the conversation. It's alarming when you can't talk about something. That's when it becomes alarming. So yeah, I just answered, no, I'm not anti-vaxxer. And I texted the journalist right after the article came out, and I said, dude, you asked me that directly. I answered directly that I'm not, and yet it's the headline that I am. What's up? And he just responded, hey, they do that in editing. I didn't do that. So, I even have that text response from him, which is kind of interesting.
That won't save them. That won't save them.
Well, exactly. It's like he admits it, that it's like not true, So, yeah.
And by the way, the editors didn't talk to you. So how do they know?
No,
their source of the reporting is him. So they made it up. That's basically what he's saying.
Oh, they made it up. Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. 100% they made that up.
So just to give the audience the flavor, they clearly, and the thing is dripping with disdain. The Brooklyn-based Arthur, 49, because you were living in Brooklyn at the time, believes that a coordinated effort is afoot. End times type of stuff, he calls it.
By
pharmaceutical companies.
Oh my.
Yeah. I'm waiting for this to end with what? What did he say? That the pharmaceutical companies, the medical industrial complex, and the government, I'm waiting for you to end it with, got together and created the COVID virus and unleashed it on us all to control us. That's conspiratorial. That's not what you said. You said that a coordinated effort by those folks to silence those like him who are questioning the science. Yes, behind the vaccines. That's exactly what we know they actually have done. We've seen proof of that, but they spin it in a way that makes you sound like a loon. And they go on to say, Arthur's gone so far as to use the term segregation, which we touched on a minute ago, while discussing the blowback
again,
that he's
go
received.
Look up what's it called? Go look up a simile for segregation. Is it simile or no? What's the word I used before? Synonym. Sorry. Yeah, a synonym. Go look up one. There's not really an adequate one. There's separatists. I've looked it up because I got a lot of pushback over the time. It's like we have to be able to use words to describe things. You can't just take language. I'm not saying it was worse than the segregation that happened amongst the races. Of course not. It's not a value judgment like that. It's just describing something. If you segregate people, you're segregating them. It sometimes happens because of what's worse, race, obviously. But it also happened recently amongst the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers, or the supposed, using
Yeah.
their wording. But like, like my last 6 months in New York, we relocated to Arizona, but my last 6 months in New York, I couldn't go to a coffee shop. I couldn't go to yoga studios. I couldn't go to restaurants. I couldn't go to anywhere. I had like art shows, which I couldn't even go into. I had paintings hanging in places I could not go.
Because you didn't have the vax.
Right. So, I mean, what's the word that describes that when you do that to a wide range of the population? There's only one word that really does it. Anyway, not to belabor that point, but it's just,
no, I get it. So then they go and they find somebody who chooses to remain unidentified. I anonymous for this piece. Anonymous sourcing like this is very controversial. So people know in modern day journalism, it's becoming more and more ubiquitous. And it didn't used to be done like this. You used to, maybe you give somebody anonymity in a piece if they're leaking the Pentagon Papers to you, if they're leaking something that's very obviously going to endanger them or get them fired if they release, not just because they want to smear somebody and don't want their name attached. That's what this person did to you. That's what the LA Times allowed this person to do to you. In the following, Arthur's always been an extremist in his actions, notes one former member of Arthur's music team who declined to be identified to protect their friendship. Okay. He's an addict, right? So he was either a full-on addict or full-on clean and very preachy. This is part of the extremes that he struggles with. What did you make of that?
Well, listen, it's, there's truth to some of that stuff. Like I'm a sober person. I have dealt with addiction. When I do get into exercise and fitness, I do get extreme about it. Like when I get into research about COVID and wild stuff, I get kind of way deep into that. That's how I became so educated on it. So, I mean, in a way, yeah, the way they're framing that is a big smear, but also, that kind of quality in a person isn't always so bad when they guide it in the right way. Now, they would say me talking about physical fitness and what I'm doing online as preachy. You could look at it that way, and maybe that's true. Or you could look at it like I'm trying to inspire other people to have a better life. That's the way I frame it in myself. It's all kind of a projection as to the person, from the person perceiving it. That's what we've learned in social media as well. If you think about it, this whole thing has been propagated by the fact that people, a lot of people don't have purpose in their life, or they're struggling for purpose. We all are, that's nothing horrible to say. And so in lieu of purpose, you can throw in all these divisive propaganda campaigns and people will jump into them. It's like if you have a God-sized hole, the darkness will flood in, but social media made people addicted to likes and addicted to approval. And me too. I mean, like there's no, I'm no different. So what that's done though is locked people into silence because they're so afraid of social shame. If you think about it, the root of all this is social shame. The fear of social shame is so extreme that people, that meme, the best meme of the year is I support the current thing, and that's really kind of what social shame has done to people. It's neutered them. But the thing is, if you speak your mind, if you raise your voice, your soul expands that way. You evolve into a different being. Your soul's evolution is dependent on you speaking your mind. If you don't speak your mind, you annihilate yourself. So you're doing the job of the people that want you silenced for them, So to that smear... smear, I would just say guilty as charged. That's your perception of it. I'm proud to be sober. The only addictions I have now are caffeine and nicotine. These darn nicotine things. I don't smoke, but apparently nicotine helps with COVID anyway. But that's it. So and I do work out a lot. I went on a run today, right before the Megyn Kelly Show, barefoot in the park. Go ground yourself. Go on a run. Does that make me preachy? To some, it would. To others, they'd go, doing a lot "Hey, that's worse. That's a good idea. Worse. Let's go on a run." So there you go.
Well, no, I just wanted to follow up and say to your point about like the the void, that people are trying to fill by affiliating with these extreme views. I mean, I think their views are extreme, right? That you're some sort of terrorist if you have questions about the vax. If you're a vax questioner, you're a VQ. You know how it's like LGBTQ now. I used to think Q was queer, but then somebody high up in one of these, GLAAD, I can't remember who it was, but was telling me it stands for questioning. I'm like, questioning doesn't get a letter. Anyway, if you're a VQer, they think you're extreme. I think they're extreme. We had a guest on the show last week named Nicholas Carderas, who was saying we have a crisis of emptiness right now. That's what we have.
Well, there you go. That's
crisis
it.
Of emptiness.
That's how they've ushered this whole thing in. And that's why more and more people are like turning to God and stuff like that, because that's a direct reaction to the fact that evil is revealing itself, and that's the other thing that you did a show the other day. Maybe it was a couple days ago. I tuned in, and they were framing this whole thing as a spiritual war. And that kind of rhetoric is making its rounds on big media formats now too. And that's unusual. And that's true though. We're seeing,
I think it was Roland Martin. We were talking about Roland Martin, who went on MSNBC and was saying it's war.
So we're seeing evil.
The other side's evil.
See evil, then what's the other side? The other side is true too. The other thing is everything I said a year or so ago or more, it's kind of the mainstream narrative on all this now. That's 100%. The funny thing. Nothing I said. It's just.
But let me jump in with this because we have a short time left, and I have to get to what you did. So unlike most people, including yours truly, when I see terrible shit written about me, but I'm a public figure who can never be defamed. You actually said, I'm going to do something about this. I've been defamed. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I understand that is used as a slur, a smear, and you hired a good lawyer and you're suing them. So what do you hope to get out of your defamation case against the LA Times?
Honestly, I hope to do what my original intention was to help motivate other people to speak their mind. That's really what's important. I think if everyone spoke their mind and really said what was on their mind and hearts, that all this sort of agenda to control us and on it goes would disappear in a heartbeat. We're already seeing that. We're already seeing it kind of fall away in the sort of nefarious implementations of control fall by the wayside. But more and more people just need to speak up. There shouldn't be all this censorship. And so hopefully it'll be a symbol of fighting back and ultimately how you will prevail if you raise your voice.
Have you ever had a friend who's just naturally talented at things? They just pick up a sport or a hobby. They immediately become good at it. They make it look easy. If you don't have that friend, it's you. And we all secretly despise you. The good news is no matter who you are, you can make great food look easy with Good Ranchers. See, Good Ranchers sources the highest quality meat in America. Number one, best. And more importantly, they can prove it. Each piece of meat is from real American farms and is hand cut and trimmed by real American workers. They only source from farms that meet their standards of excellence, which means it's pasture raised. That's what you need to be looking for. No antibiotics ever and no added hormones. Good Ranchers is so confident in the quality that they sell, they're going to have a 100% satisfaction guarantee on every box they ship to you. Plus, you can use my code, Megyn, to get free shipping and $30 off on your first order. They have won awards like Best Food Subscription, and they have been part of the INC 5000 list, Inc. 5000 list of America's fastest growing companies. But their mission is still the same, bringing everyone to the table to share in the best of what makes life good. If you want the best, if you want to be the best, if you want everybody to envy you and your cooking skills, go with Good Ranchers. Visit goodranchers.com/Megyn, that's Megyn, to save on American meat delivered right to your door. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.